Okay, so are you ready to dig into some really fascinating stuff today?
Oh, always up for a deep dive. What are we exploring today?
We've got excerpts from psychology studies, anecdotes about historical figures, even a bit about video games and the US Army.
Wow, that's quite a range. Sounds intriguing.
It all ties together, I promise. We're on a mission to uncover some surprising but very practical strategies for finding more joy in your work and life, and of course, how to avoid burning out along the way.
Avoiding burnout. You have my attention. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so we're kicking things off with a story about a physicist, a wobbling plate, and the power of play.
Okay, I'm listening. A physicist, a wobbling plate. You've piqued my curiosity.
Our sources start with Professor Richard Feynman. He was a Nobel Prize winner, but even with all that incredible success, he found himself feeling burnt out.
It's amazing how even brilliant minds can hit that wall, isn't it?
Right. So what's interesting is how he reignited his passion for physics. And it wasn't some grand gesture, it was actually something much simpler.
Keep going. I want to know where the wobbling plate comes in.
Well, Feynman was observing a plate wobbling in the air. Sounds simple enough, right?
Okay, I can picture it, but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
Exactly. He became curious about why the Cornell logo on the plate seemed to be wobbling faster than the plate itself.
Ah, the mind of a physicist. Always observing, always questioning.
And that simple observation, as silly as it sounds, sparked something in him. It was this childlike curiosity that relit that fire for physics. He even compared it to reading Arabian Nights.
So he was approaching physics not as work, but as pure pleasure, a game. Fascinating.
And get this playful approach led him to his Nobel Prize winning work.
No way, really, you're kidding.
Nope, not kidding. He actually used his observations about the wobbling plate to help understand complex quantum mechanics. It makes you think, right?
It really does. It shows how important it is to stay curious, to never lose that sense of wonder.
Absolutely. So we know play is crucial, but how can we non-physicists inject more of that playfulness into our own lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Well, our sources point to adventure. Like when we were kids and everything felt exciting and new. A 2020 study actually found that even simple adventures, like trying a new coffee shop, made people measurably happier.
It's like that saying, variety's the spice of life, right?
Right, and it makes you wonder what small adventures we could each weave into our routines.
I'm already thinking. But are there other tools for unlocking that sense of play?
Our sources mention a few. One is this idea of choosing your character, like in a video game.
Choosing your character. Okay, I like where this is going.
So think of it like stepping into a new persona.
Interesting. So even if I'm doing a mundane task, if I approach it as a specific character, it can feel more engaging.
Exactly. It's like putting on a mental costume. And speaking of different characters, our sources talk about the work of Dr. Stuart Brown.
Hmm.
He believes we can tap into our natural play personalities to find more joy in our work. He identified 8 different types, like the Joker or the Director.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. So if you're a natural storyteller, you might turn a boring report into a detective story in your mind.
Precisely. It's all about reframing those tasks in a way that resonates with your natural inclinations. And speaking of reframing, our sources also talk about focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
Oh, I like that. It's about enjoying the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. And they use the example of Olympic sport climber Alberto Ginés Lopez. He just seemed to be truly enjoying himself during the competition, even while scaling those challenging walls.
It's like he was in a state of flow, right? That feeling of being completely absorbed in the moment.
Exactly. And when we're in flow, we lose track of time, our worries fade away, and we're just completely present in what we're doing. And this applies to any task, even seemingly mundane ones.
It's all about perspective, isn't it? Finding that spark of joy even in the everyday.
Absolutely. One of our sources, Matthew Dix, he found ways to make his McDonald's job back in the day enjoyable. He turned routine tasks into these mini challenges for himself.
See, proof that a simple shift in perspective can make all the difference.
Totally. But you know what else can really hold us back from finding that joy? The fear of failure.
Oh, the dreaded fear of failure. It's a creativity killer for sure.
Right. Our sources talk about this experiment by Mark Rober. You might know him. He's a former NASA engineer and a pretty big YouTuber.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some of his videos. What did he do?
So he set up this coding challenge, but here's the twist. He told some people they would be penalized for making mistakes. And guess what? Those people, their fear of messing up skyrocketed, and they actually performed worse.
It makes sense. That pressure can really mess with your head, make you doubt yourself.
Exactly. But here's the thing, Robert, drawing on his experience at NASA, he suggests something really powerful, reframing those failures as data points.
Data points. I like that. It takes the sting out of it.
Right. Each failure isn't a setback, it's an opportunity to learn and get closer to success. It's like that Thomas Edison quote: I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work.
Love that quote. So, embrace failure. Or should we call it data collection?
It's data collection. I like the sound of that. And finally, our sources introduce us to the wisdom of Alan Watts, who encourages approaching life with sincerity over seriousness.
Sincerity over seriousness. I like that. What's the difference exactly?
So Watts argued that when we're overly serious, we become rigid. We're afraid to make mistakes, to truly play. But sincerity, that allows for openness, curiosity, a willingness to embrace the journey with all its imperfections.
It's about loosening the reins a bit, letting ourselves breathe. Sounds much healthier.
Right. It's a delicate balance, for sure, taking our work seriously enough to do it well, but not letting it steal the joy from the process. And that ties into the first energizer our sources talk about.
Okay, and what would that be?
Play.
Yeah.
Tapping into that energy of playfulness to fuel our creativity.
Makes sense. But that's just one, right? What other energizers can help transform our work and lives?
Oh, there are two more. Our sources point to power and people, and those are exactly what we'll be unpacking next. So, ready to dive into power as an energizer.
Let's do it. But I've got to admit, the word power sometimes makes me think of, not so pleasant things like power struggles or being cutthroat.
I hear you. But our sources, they frame it in a different light. It's not about dominating others. It's about feeling empowered in your own work and life.
Okay, that's a different spin on it. I like that. So how do we tap into that kind of power?
Well, our sources use a really interesting example, the story of Netflix.
Netflix, like the streaming giant. What about them?
Remember back when they were just a DVD rental company? They actually tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah. Blockbuster basically laughed them out the door, right?
Exactly. But what's interesting is Netflix's success wasn't just about a good business model. Our sources suggest it was also their company culture.
What was so special about their culture?
Well, they really emphasized freedom and responsibility. They kind of threw out the rule book on how companies should be run.
Okay, how so?
For one, they got rid of traditional policies, like having a set number of vacation days or even set work hours.
Wait, seriously? No set work hours?
Nope. Patty McCord, she was their chief talent officer. Her philosophy was, if you're getting your work done, manage your own time.
Wow. That's a lot of trust to put in your employees. But I can see how that would be empowering.
Right. It really highlights how powerful it can be to feel in control of your own work. But of course, we don't all work at Netflix.
Yeah, unlimited vacation days would be nice, but it's not the reality for most of us.
Right. So how can we cultivate that feeling of empowerment in our own lives, even if our jobs aren't quite as flexible?
I'm all ears.
Well, our sources offer a few strategies. One is called the confidence switch.
Confidence switch. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So it's all about building up our self-efficacy. Have you heard of that term?
It rings a bell. It's basically just confidence, right? Believing in yourself.
Exactly. And psychologist Albert Bandura, his research showed that believing in your abilities can actually make you perform better.
Wait, so just by thinking I can do something, I'm more likely to actually achieve it.
It sounds crazy, but it's true. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
There was this one study where cyclists who used positive self-talk while they were cycling, they actually increased their endurance.
Wow, that's wild. So our thoughts really do have a powerful impact on our physical abilities.
They really do. But what about those times when you just don't feel confident? Our sources talk about something called flipping the confidence switch, even when you don't feel it.
Flipping the switch even when you're not feeling it. How does that work?
It's about acting as if you were confident. You trick your brain into following suit.
Ah, so fake it till you make it.
Exactly. You know, it reminds me of when I used to work as a walk-around magician. I was terrified to approach strangers at first, but I learned to put on this confident persona, and it worked, even if my heart was racing underneath.
The power of acting. I love it. But besides this confidence switch, what else can we do to boost our sense of power?
Our sources also highlight the power of learning from others.
You mean like mentors?
Yes, psychologists actually call this vicarious mastery. Like there was this study where kids who watched other kids successfully climb a wall were more likely to attempt it themselves and do better.
So just seeing someone else achieve something can give us a boost.
Exactly. And think about the stories we love. Star Wars, The Hunger Games, Avatar. The heroes, they all start out as apprentices, gaining skills and confidence along the way.
It's the classic hero's journey. And I guess as humans, we're hardwired to learn from those around us.
Absolutely. And speaking of learning, our sources also talk about something called the protege effect. It suggests that even if we don't feel like an expert in something yet, teaching it to someone else can solidify our own understanding.
Interesting. So by explaining something to others, we actually learn it better ourselves.
Exactly. One study found that students who taught material to a computer avatar, even just a computer program, actually outperformed those who studied alone.
That's wild. Maybe we should start teaching classes on all this stuff.
Ah, maybe we should. But besides confidence and learning, our sources emphasize one more crucial aspect of feeling empowered:
And what's that?
owning your mindset.
Owning your mindset. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means recognizing that you may not always have control over a situation, but you always have control over your attitude.
I like that. Choose your attitude.
Right. It reminds me of this quote by Viktor Frankl: "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances."
Wow, that's powerful. And so true.
It reminds me of when I was a junior doctor. I was often given tasks that just felt, well, kind of tedious and unimportant.
I bet. It's easy to get stuck in a rut in any job.
Right. And I remember feeling really resentful at times, but then I realized, hey, I can choose how I approach these tasks. Even just shifting my perspective made a huge difference.
So it's about finding that internal locus of control.
Exactly. So to recap, cultivating that sense of power, it's about building confidence, being
Yeah,
open to learning from others, and choosing your attitude.
I like it. Okay, we've covered play and power. What about that third energizer our sources kept mentioning?
You mean people?
Yes,
Yeah,
people, our relationships are a huge part of our lives.
absolutely. And what's fascinating is that the energy we get from our connections, it's not just about feeling good. Our sources suggest it can actually fuel our creativity and our work.
Okay, now that's intriguing. So how does that work?
So we've explored play, we've explored power, and now it's time for the third energizer in the lineup.
People. I was looking forward to this one.
Mhm.
Our connections are such a big part of what makes life, well, like,
Absolutely. And what I'm getting from these sources is that the energy we get from those connections, it's not just about feeling good. It can actually fuel our work, our creativity.
okay, now that's interesting. So it's not just about having a good time. It actually makes us more productive.
Exactly. Our sources start off by talking about this idea of relational energy.
Relational energy. Okay, I'm not familiar with that term. What is that exactly?
So it's this idea that some interactions just leave us feeling more energized, right? While others kind of drain us.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Like, there's some people I could talk to for hours and I walk away buzzing. And then there are others, well, let's just say I need a nap afterward.
You're preaching to the choir, and it's not just subjective either. There was a study that mapped the energy networks within organizations.
Energy networks, like who energizes who?
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that people generally agreed on who were the energizers and, well, who weren't.
Wow. So we're kind of hardwired to pick up on these energy vibes from each other.
It seems that way. But let's talk about a more positive example. Our sources tell a cool story about the musician Brian Eno. Did you ever hear about this?
Brian Eno.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with his work, but I don't know the story.
Okay, well, so basically, a chance encounter with another musician at a party, it basically launched his whole career.
Wow, talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Right. Sometimes it's just about putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
being open to connection, and you never know what might come of it.
I love that. Okay, so chance encounters are one thing, but what about when we're working with others, like in a team setting?
Well, our sources talk about this idea of a comrade mindset. It's about fostering this feeling that you're all in it together, even if you're working on individual tasks.
Comrade mindset.
Hmm.
I like that. It's about building camaraderie, a sense of shared purpose.
Exactly. And it really works. There was this one study where they told some participants that a tip for solving a puzzle came from a fellow student. Those participants, they worked on the puzzle 48% longer than those who weren't given that little nudge.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So even just knowing someone else has your back can boost your perseverance.
Absolutely. And speaking of working together, our sources also mention the power of synchronicity. Have you ever heard of that?
Synchronicity, like when two things happen at the same time that seem connected but aren't.
Well, sort of. It's also about moving in sync with others. Like, for example, tapping to a beat together, or even just walking in step. It can actually increase cooperation and that feeling of connection.
It's like you're literally getting in sync with each other, both physically and mentally.
Hmm.
It's fascinating how our brains work.
Right. And it shows just how much our interactions, even subtle ones, can impact our sense of connection. And you know what else is interesting? Our sources also dive into the science behind helping others.
Helping others, as in, like, volunteering.
Exactly. Apparently, there's this thing called the helper's high. And it's not just some feel-good saying, there's actual science to back it up.
Really? So, like, doing good actually makes us feel good.
It's
Color me shocked.
right. It seems too good to be true. But in one study, 95% of the volunteers said they felt better after helping.
That's incredible. So volunteering, it's like a win-win.
Exactly. And here's another twist. Asking for help can actually benefit the person we're asking.
Now that's counterintuitive. How so?
It's called the Benjamin Franklin effect.
The Benjamin Franklin effect. Okay, now I'm really curious.
So the story goes, Benjamin Franklin, he once asked a rival for a favor.
He asked his rival for a favor. Why would he do that?
That's what everyone thought, but here's the thing. After his rival did the favor for him, their relationship actually improved.
No way. You're telling me asking your enemies for favors is the key to world peace.
Huh. It's probably a bit more nuanced than that. But basically, by asking for help, even in small ways, we give other people the opportunity to feel good by contributing.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's not about being needy. It's about empowering others.
Exactly. Okay, last but not least, our sources talk about over-communication.
Over-communication, isn't that like the opposite of what most people struggle with?
You'd think so, right. But they're actually talking about over-communicating in a good way. Both for the good stuff and maybe even more importantly, the not-so-good stuff.
Okay, I'm listening. So, like, sharing even our small wins.
Exactly. They call it capitalization. Like when we share good news and other people respond enthusiastically, it amplifies those positive emotions.
It's like that saying, shared joy is double joy.
Exactly. Our sources actually describe 4 different ways people respond to good news.
4. Okay, give me the rundown.
So there's the active and enthusiastic response, which is the best. And then it goes downhill from there, with the worst being completely ignoring it.
Yikes. So basically, be the friend you'd want to celebrate with.
Exactly. Now, what about for those trickier conversations when you need to give or receive news that's not so rosy?
Oh, those are never fun.
Uh-huh.
Any tips on how to navigate those gracefully?
Our sources recommend something called radical candor. It's about finding that sweet spot between honesty and kindness.
Radical candor. I like it. It's like that saying, honesty without kindness is cruelty, but kindness without honesty is manipulation.
Oh, that's a good one. And when it comes to giving feedback, our sources really emphasize focusing on your delivery.
It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly. It's about framing things in a way that's helpful, not hurtful. So there you have it. Play, power, and people. 3 powerful energizers that can transform our work and our lives.
This has been amazing. I've learned so much.
Me too. But I'm curious, what resonated most with you, listener? What one small change can you make today to bring a little more of that energized feeling into your own life? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.